Hello everyone, welcome into our latest live video. It's Friday, it's the 27th of June, 2025. I'm CareyHolzman, and thank you guys for joining me on this Friday. Oh, it's Friday, right? And today we're going to we're going to continue, for sure, our build from last Friday, where we were prepping this AMD 9600X on the ASRock Phantom Gaming B850i Lightning Mini-ITX motherboard. Now, this cooler definitely doesn't hack it. Within 90 seconds, this thing overheats. So, well, I intended for this cooler to be temporary. Oh yeah, it's definitely going to be temporary. I'm waiting on a replacement air cooler that was supposed to be in today that has not arrived. But that's not going to slow us down because I haven't decided if I want to put in an air cooler or a liquid cooler. And if you joined us yesterday, we had Matt from Matt's Computer Services on, and he's a big fan of the Arctic all-in-one coolers. We have two of those here, brand new in a box. We've never used them, and he's a big fan of them. So if by the time we're ready to replace the cooler, if our air cooler hasn't arrived, I'll just go ahead and put the liquid cooler in. The thing is I'm just curious if the regular cooler will work with it, because I think it'll look really good in the case with RGB on the cooler. Basically the same kind of, it's like a Wraith Spire cooler. I'm just not sure if that will work on the 9600X or not, if it'll be adequate. So we're just going to go on with the show and we'll see what happens, and when we get there we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. The good news is I got the case, and I want to tell you a little bit about the case. I've never seen this case before in my life, Your Honor. G.SKILL, the people who make RAM, I guess they made a case. And I say made because when I started to research this after I ordered it, there are plenty of reviews on this case from 3 and 4 years ago. I'm a little late to the game, I guess, because I didn't even know they made a case. And one of the things that I learned in watching some of the previous reviews from years ago is that, and had I known this, I probably, I don't know if I still would have ordered it or not, but all of your back motherboard panel connectors are under here. But I don't know, we'll see. Everything else looks pretty good on it. It does require one of the small power supplies. So I went on Amazon, I bought the absolute cheapest power supply I could find. That was like 500 watts or something. What is this? Is this 500 watts? Yeah, 500 watts. And it's ESGAMING. It might be good. I don't know. It's like 37 bucks. I mean, you know, I'll totally try it. It's not going to a customer. It's not going on my reputation, so why not? The case is called a Z5i, and it's from G.SKILL, and it's got these magnetic doors that open up, as you can see here on both sides. And on top of that, it's got RGB that comes out of the bottom, and RGB G.SKILL logo lights up. And then on the back, if you do want to put a 240 or 280 liquid cooler or just fans, they're right here. But obviously, there's no airflow where the glass is. So you're going to get your air from underneath, and then that'll come up and either go out the back or can go out the top. This top screen up here, I guess some people were confused on how you're supposed to get it out. And I'm glad I saw that, because it doesn't have any pull handle. It's a magnetic screen right on top, and if you reach underneath, you just pull it up. It's pretty stiff, too. It's not like the thin screens I'm accustomed to on cases, especially ones that don't have frames around the screens where the magnets are in the frames. Here, the magnets are built into the top of the case. This is all metal. And since there's no tag or pull handle on it, you just come at it from up underneath. There's a bunch of holes under here, about yay big, and just easily put your fingers up there and push it up. So, I don't know. I guess it's a design option. So we've got our motherboard prep from last Friday. We've got our power supply. We've got our case. The only thing I'm waiting on is that additional air cooler. And before we get to that, this is what you get with the case, which is some documentation, some rubber grommets for mounting. There's a place for one 3.5-inch drive, and if you use it, it'll block how big of a video card you can put in. It is a mini ITX case. I mean, come on. So I guess 330 millimeters is the biggest GPU, which should fit a Founders Edition, like a 3090 Founders Edition. Should fit right in there. And it's got 3 PCI slot covers. Some Mini-ITX are just 2. And some of these video cards today will take up 3 slots. Even if they're only using 1, they overlap over potentially a total of 3. So they got you covered on this. And the motherboard's going to go in, as I mentioned, with the I/O facing down. And they include a riser cable, which you can then, put your video card plugged into the riser cable so that your video card fans are on display. The problem with that is, my understanding is the riser cable, even when this shipped, it was already outdated at PCIe 3 riser cable. And it's just something to be aware of if you're going to use this for that purpose. And honestly, in my opinion, if you really wanted that kind of performance, you probably shouldn't be building a Mini-ITX. You're going to have heat problems and it's going to be overcrowded, but that's just me. You can do it. It's possible, but it's just really going to be a challenge. So if you're up for the challenge, go for it. We're going to be using onboard graphics on today's video. And on top of that, if somebody were to want to add a GPU to this, they easily could. And, the power supply may have to be upgraded depending on what GPU they end up using. But there's nothing that'll stop it other than your wallet. And we're just trying to build as many as we can and make our money go as far as we can. And we'll figure out what we do with it after it's been built. I want to take a minute also to say a shout out and a thank you to our friend Buster. I just received in the mail today a couple of birthday cards from our friend Buster in Scotland. And the first one we've got here is a Stormtrooper. You know what? Let me see if I can get to camera 2. The Stormtrooper. So you open that up. Look at that. I think he knows me. It's pretty neat. And on the back, we've got a little card that says happy birthday. Carey, have a great day, Buster. And I love that he wrote it by hand and shipped it from Scotland. It's got the Scottish postmark on it. And then there's this one. And I don't know how well you guys can read that. But you always see me reaching for my glasses now when I got to look for detail, So this says, "Hey doctor, do you think too much alcohol may be making my eyesight worse?" To which the doctor says, "You're inefficient ship chop, mate." Yet again, nice little note in there from our friend Buster. So thank you so much to our friend Buster out there in Scotland. It's very thoughtful and kind, and I cherish them forever. All right, let me jump over to the chat. Say hello to everybody joining us today. I see Sam renewed his membership. Thank you, Sam. There's Eddie Casanova and David Graham saying hello, along with Dustin Fuller and scroll. Hold on, let me catch up. 3D Everything says hello. Gainsy95, welcome in. Thomas MacT says hello. Jose Lopez joining us. I am going to put some glasses on. I was doing pretty good there for a few minutes. Thomas MacT says hello. Ben Laird joining us from Scotland saying hello. Richard DeFries and Dan Nilsson, along with Andy W6AD. Mar4K, hello from Chicago. 86 degrees Fahrenheit with what feels like humidity borrowed from Florida. That must be Mark Leibowitz. Divine Love says good afternoon. Welcome in. Gainsy95 said, "What's going on with YouTube? My real name's not being displayed, just my old username." Yeah, I'm seeing that a lot with people. Something's going on with YouTube. Jason Lewis joins us. Welcome in, Jason. Mortant says hello. Mark Baggett says hello, as does Paul Connolly and Dazzle555. John Paul Bacon saying hello in the chat room. And I think I got everybody. Let's see here. Jose Lopez with a $1 super chat. Thank you, Jose. David Graham renews his membership. Now another, what is he? He's on now for 22 months. David's been a member. Right on. Thank you, David. Another free members chat and nothing to say, but thanks. Appreciate it, David. Thank you so much. Charlie Purley with a $10 super chat. Thank you, Charlie. And at Vermont says hello. Kane says hello. It does look like we're seeing a lot of old usernames all of a sudden. That's interesting. Yeah, something going on. YouTube did something, didn't they? It's always got to be something. All right, guys. Today, again, just to kind of go over the parts with you, let's start with this case, which I am surprised has flown under my radar all this time. And I was never aware of this case until we stumbled on it during a live video the other day. Was it Monday? Tuesday? And I think it was Monday on a members only where we're looking at cases, if I'm not mistaken. Could have been talking about it on Friday. All these shows blur into one for me, so, you know. Let's see, the G.SKILL Z5i. And, you know, even though it's been around for 3 or 4 years, it only has 6 ratings on it. As far as I know, they never made any other case. They never followed this up or improved it. And from the marketing photos, we can see an idea here that the I/O shield is down. The RAM is up. Usually the RAM is to the right and the I/O shield's facing the back. We've got a small form factor SFX power supply up there. And on the other side, you can run your graphics card. Right back here would be where your graphics card would, wait a minute. Yeah, that's the back. And then that's the PCIe riser cable. This part of it here is the riser cable. You'll see when we get in there. And then these little keyholes, this would be for a 3.5-inch drive. And as you can see, if your graphics card is going to go in vertically, it's going to hit that drive potentially. But again, it's a Mini-ITX system, so I don't know why anybody would be wanting to put mechanical drives in it. You probably want a bigger tower for that. So also, we've got the ESGAMING power supply, and that's 500 watts, 38 bucks. I was like, all right, for 38 bucks, I'll give it a shot. Reviews on it look pretty good, so we'll see. Trying to keep our costs down so we can do more. And of course, just as a reminder, we're using the Fanxiang S880 1 terabyte Gen 4 drive in here with the DDR5 OLOy RAM, 32 gigs of RAM. And then, of course, the motherboard is the B850i Lightning, which is cheaper than last year's B650 from MSI. MSI will charge you $30 more and give you less. So for this is a much better bang for the buck, as you can see. As with all Mini-ITX motherboards, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth are already built in, and this has a lot of I/O in the back, so we should be able to have no shortage of USB ports. We've got just one HDMI out. However, you can run through USB-C to a DisplayPort or HDMI adapter, giving you 2 video outputs. And then you've got 2.5 gig LAN on here, along with Wi-Fi 6E. And this supports all of the AM5 Ryzen CPUs. So the other board we did send back, the MSI that we bought used, that was damaged and unusable, and we did finally get a refund on that. Hallelujah. And yeah, let me get back over here to camera 1. And let me set these cards aside. I'll put them over here. And then in the bag, we're going to have some screws in here that we need basically for either drives or motherboard mounting, maybe even power supply mounting. I'm not sure if I'm going to need the documentation on this, although it looks really, the case design looks strange. Usually everything kind of goes in the same. I like that they've given us a resealable bag, but inside of this bag is another bag that's sealed. I don't know why they do this. So let me take my bag that was in this bag out of this bag to get to this bag. All right, it's just plastic that'll sit in the landfill for the next 1,000 years. I don't know why people make a big deal about it. And I'm just going to put these screws here on the table just to get an idea what we got. Because what it looks like I'm seeing here are mostly screws that have non-threaded shoulders. And that's usually for where a grommet would go. So that implies to me that those screws would be used for mounting 2.5-inch or 3.5-inch drives. And in here, these are the aforementioned grommets, as well as a couple of Velcro cable ties, which is pretty cool. So I won't be using any of this, but I'll put this bag back into this bag here. And then this bag, that has more, I don't know why, separated out drive screws. And I'm going to take every screw that has a drive, that has a shoulder on it, because we won't use any of those. We're going to use M.2 drive only, which is faster, no cabling, much cleaner looking. And I don't know anybody'd still be using mechanical drives unless you're just storing a lot of data. And if you were storing a lot of data, why not do that through USB? On the other hand, if you are playing some games and they're very large in size, I mean, I get it, but I'd still go SSD. Just load the games up as you want to play them, let Steam host them, or let Steam deliver the data to you anytime you want them. Or if you're not playing the game, copy the install files off onto an external drive and you don't have to sit through the download again. So what that leaves us with are what appears to be 4 standard power supply screws and 4 standard motherboard mounting screws. So just 8 screws really is all we're going to use on this build, I guess, because everything else is for drives. And as I mentioned, we're using M.2 drives, so shouldn't be a problem. Do I have a cooler? Okay, looks like Amazon arrived, so we might just be getting our cooler right on time. In the meantime, I'll just put the documentation and such up here. And let me go back over to the chat room real quick. There we go. Mark says, some work just walked in his door. Time to grab a cup of joe and get started. Enjoy the stream while I work. All right, well, you enjoy your work while I work. Why don't you start a stream? We can watch you work. Ian Gooch joining us from London with a £10 super chat. Thank you, Ian. John Lewis says, happy birthday month. Thank you, John. Just checking in the chat here before we get started. I think I'm caught up. Andy Kane joining us says hello. Welcome into Andy. All right. Very good. So I guess where we're going to get started is we're going to take all the panels off of this thing. And that's just pretty standard, like you've seen any other case that has swing open panels, whether they're glass or metal. They usually, and here's the problem, there's nothing to grab here. You just kind of grab an edge and pull till you break the magnetic lock that it has, if you will, a magnetic attraction. And when we open this up, we should be able to just lift up on the glass. That was really easy. And set it aside somewhere where you're not going to potentially knock it over or scratch it, because you wouldn't want to do that on your new build, would you? We'll also take the screen off just to make sure it's not in our way, since I've never worked on this case before. We've got what appears to be our power supply extension cable. So what that means is the power supply is going to go up here, but the power plug goes down underneath. Oh, and there's my cooler.
Shower seat.
Wow, we really cut it close on this show. My preference is to see if this cooler here, which is a standard AMD cooler, by the way, but not necessarily for this CPU. My understanding is that the AM4 and AM5 socket will use the same coolers. I could be wrong. I'm not an AMD expert. I am not a fan of the old-fashioned clip-down locking system for these coolers. I much prefer screws. But you can see that's a big, beefier cooler. And I think in this case, it'll look better than an air cooler with the RGB that's on this. And I just bought this off Amazon. They also have them on eBay. It was going to take a while to order it off eBay for about a savings of $10 to $15. I think $25 on eBay and then $40 on Amazon. But Amazon got it to us faster, so I paid the $40. And if it doesn't work, it'll just go on the shelf as a spare cooler for future AMD builds. If it does work, I think we'll just leave this cooler on once we see what it looks like, and we'll save the Arctic cooler for yet another day. So that's my plan. This cooler's clearly been used. It normally has thermal compound already on it, but that's okay. I don't mind. I don't mind one bit. And then up here, oh, this is your ARGB cable, and this is for lighting up the RGB underneath and the logo. This would go onto the ARGB header on the motherboard, or if you don't have one, onto a fan controller. And there should be a little cover that goes on top of the spare one here that you would use to daisy chain. Maybe it's in here somewhere. Maybe it fell off. Let's go ahead and take this other side door off. Oh, these magnets are good, though, I'll tell you that. There it goes. I feel like I'm going to break it. Now look what's happening. Because it's an empty case, all the weight of this glass is making it one-sided. Oh, and there's the little plastic piece that fell off. All right, so this should go on, I'm guessing, right here, and it just probably fell off in shipping. That's to keep the pins from grounding out. It's there for this cover actually makes sense. Sometimes they put like dust covers on. That's not a dust cover so much as a anti-grounding. You don't want things to short out. So it's pretty important that if you don't have that, if these wires, if these connectors are just bare metal sticking out that they can touch anything, you can take care of that with your cable management. Just make sure that you cable it in such a way, or just get some electrical tape and wrap it around it just to be safe. All right, so getting back to this door, I mean the magnet, if I just lightly close the door, let's see where it grabs it. So close. I can feel it pulling. That's a good thing, you know. It is a big heavy piece of glass. It's going to need strong magnets. And once we take this piece off of here, I think once we've got parts in there, it won't tip like that, but just to be aware. And we'll set this one, well, I guess we'll just put it right like so. And I'll leave the plastic film on there so that they don't scratch each other up by leaning them up against each other, which is just not a good idea to do on brand new glass, or on any glass if you care about, you know, making it look clean. So that is our whole case right here, and then this is a bundle of front port umbilical cables. That's our USB-C, our USB 3 and USB-C cable, and power switch, power LED, and hard drive LED. Okay, so I guess we have all that up here. Now, this thing is covered in film, so if you like the peel of plastic away from things, you're going to really like this case because it's everywhere. Ta-da! Barry Klein joins us and says hello. Welcome in, Barry. Just set this over here somewhere. That ought to be good. What is this? Oh, this I think was with the CPU cooler. What do we got going on here? One cable goes to USB. This cable goes to, this is not ARGB, this is something else. Where do these go? Oh, there's dust covers over this. Okay. Okay. Not even sure that we really need that. I think by just powering it up without this stuff, it'll go into a default rainbow mode. This is an older cooler, by the way, but it's all copper. So, or at least the base is copper. And with this just basic AMD cooler, which is newer, it's all aluminum. It doesn't cool as well. And this may not cool as adequately for our needs either. So since it's arrived on time, I think what we'll do is we'll put the power supply in the case. And then I want to, no, let's not do that. Let's put the power supply and the motherboard on the bench here with the new cooler on it. And let's see running Cinebench if it stays cool enough before we put it in the case. Because that way, if I have to take the cooler back off, it'll be a lot easier. Now, if you remember, I mentioned those little plastic components we took off, the little brackets that the motherboard comes with and why you should save them. And this is exactly why, because this cooler will use those. So we have to put those back on again. But still, it's a very easy thing to take on and remove. However, to put on, to put on. And it's so easy that, you know, just doing this for testing, this would be my preferred cooler. I think it'll look better. But I know the Arctic all-in-one will cool better, but this one I think will look better. And since we have all this glass, it's all about the look. You know, we've got the RGB RAM. I think the RGB cooler with the RGB on the board is RGB enough for something this small. And as for these cables, I don't think we'll use them, but they have nothing to do with the performance of the cooler. So if the cooler's working, if it's keeping the CPU cool under load, if I decide, yeah, maybe I want to control the RGB, I kind of don't want to. This is not ARGB, whatever this cable is. It appears to be a standard, there's a 4-pin, I forget what they call this. If there were only 3 pins in there, that would be the ARGB or addressable RGB standard. This one with USB, I don't know why you would be hooking this to USB, since everything your fan needs to know coming off of the fan header on the motherboard, like any other CPU fan, comes through that single 4-pin connector. So unless the RGB doesn't light up, you know, it's been such a long time since I used one of these, you know, I'm assuming the RGB is going to pull power from the same fan header. We're going to find all that out right now. So we're going to start by simply removing what I know isn't going to work for us. And I kind of figured just this CPU fan wasn't going to cut the mustard, but I wanted to try and see. So for everyday ordinary tasks, the CPU fan's fine. But when we run something really intensive on it, the CPU gets hot within under 90 seconds. I shut it down. It was getting too hot. So the great thing about doing what I do is I get a lot of spare coolers and I just put them on a shelf. So when projects come along that, you know, such as this, that I don't have all the parts ready, but I need something to keep the video going. That gives me an opportunity to put the build on as scheduled, be able to do the BIOS update, the Windows install, the drivers, all the updates, etc., and make sure everything works correctly. Assuming everything does, and it's like, okay, well, that's not going to be good under load. So now I can, go back and say, okay, now that I have this new information, what cooler do I want to use? And I can't really make that decision until I decide what case I want to use. So the reason why we prepped it with this is I did not know yet that this case existed, let alone that we were going to buy it. And depending on the case, sometimes you have to use a small form factor power supply. Other times you can use a ATX power supply, and yet other times there are adapters that you can go either way, such as the H210 from NZXT and a number of others. You can go either way. Once I know which power supply I need to have based on what case I've ordered, then I can see what the clearance and tolerances are of the case to figure out what kind of coolers will fit in there. And overall, what's going to match the color? Is it a white case? Is it, what's the design of the case? Is it very classic or is it more modern? And as such, I might want the aesthetic to match the aesthetic of the case when possible. But more importantly, of course, we need to be able to cool the CPU. But when there's so much glass, we can't deny the importance of the aesthetic value of the CPU cooler as well. So this really worked out well for me in that I could get this part done last week, and then during this week, do the research, order the parts, have time for those parts to arrive. And then, like this just arrived while we were live. You couldn't ask for better timing than that. That's about as close as you can cut it. And so going from part 1 to part 2 in 7 days is not a long time. Try it sometime, because that's about as quickly as you can do it unless you're overnighting all your parts. So we're not wasting any time here trying to procrastinate any builds. We literally are doing this as quickly as possible without any sort of long research to develop out what cooler we want to use and everything and see it all in our head. I'm just ordering parts more or less based on budget, what's available, right? You can sketch something out in your head and find out you can't get the parts or that the price has changed. And so we're looking for things that are potentially on sale, such as that S880 1TB NVMe drive or the RAM. It's hard to predict where prices and inventory are going from day to day. And so until we need it, until we know what we need, then we can research what our choices are, order it, and wait a couple days for product to arrive. If I had more time, I could have saved a little more money and sourced the cooler from eBay, but we'd be waiting another week before we would have this in stock at a minimum. So that's why there's the delay. Okay. I need to clean the cooler off, and I need to put the plastic brackets back on. So I think what I'll do here is take the plastic brackets. Remember, I told you to save those. They should be in here. Yep, here they are. Now, if this cooler, for whatever reason, I don't like it or doesn't work well enough, and we end up using the Arctic, what do I have over there, like a 240? That would probably be the one I'll put in here. However, then these will come back off again, so I'm not going to get rid of this little bag either, because this may be all coming back apart. I don't like to speculate. I don't like to wonder and see it in my head and do the research. Just do the work. If you do the work, the research you get in return for that is far more accurate, and in my opinion, doesn't take as long. I just see a lot of people who want to do everything but the work. They'll talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and they'll spend hours and hours and hours online looking things up and reading through messages and sorting through the spam. For me personally, put up or shut up. Do the work or don't do the work, but don't sit there and think that by doing all this research you're saving any time. You're wasting time. A little bit of research is fine. Give yourself a time limit. Set a timer. If you can't figure it out in 15 minutes, start putting it together. Make a decision. Get moving. That way you'll at least get something done, because otherwise you get stuck into a time suck that at some point, the longer you stay attached to it, the harder it is to break away, and nothing will get done on time. So that's the philosophy that I have, take it or leave it, because otherwise we wouldn't even be live right now. I'd still be researching this. And who knows if the research is adequate, if the parts they're talking about are still available, or if they don't even know what the hell they're talking about. Now you notice I don't torque those screws down real hard, just pretty much till they stop. That's all you need. I want to clean the thermal compound off of the previous cooler and the top of the CPU. And I also want to get my thermal compound out. This is a used cooler, so I didn't expect there to come with used thermal paste. Is that Stephen right? I bought some used paint. It was in the shape of a house. And what was the other one? I bought some batteries, but they weren't included. But I'm bummed. So I'm going to grab, let's see, just a paper towel to wipe it clean. We'll grab some isopropyl alcohol, as high of an alcohol content as you can get to 100% as possible. 70% of work is done ideal because it still has contaminants in it. It's got, it's not pure alcohol, so when it evaporates, when it dries off and evaporates out, there's particulates in there. It's not as pure, which is ideal if you're, that lower alcohol content, if you're looking for it to disinfect a wound. You don't want to use pure alcohol to disinfect it with. It's not good. You want the lower alcohol, 70%, maybe no more than 80%. I'm not a doctor, but I'm telling you, 80% or less for human use, like to clean and disinfect a wound. As close as you can get to 100% for electronics cleaning. And the same as when we used to clean VCR heads back in the day. We are still using the exact same stuff. So I'm going to step off camera here and just grab some, let's see, some items we need for doing this cleanup and reapplication of thermal paste. And I wouldn't do this if I didn't think it wasn't going to work. I do think it will. But I've been wrong before, and I don't want to wonder what if and do all the math and then come up with some speculation that in reality may be very, very different. And the speculation and the math don't matter to me. All that matters to me is reality. Okay, that's my logic. I got things to do, and I'm not going to chase down an anomaly that mathematically makes sense, but in reality doesn't, simply because there's some aspect of it that I don't understand, or some information I don't have that's giving me false, the wrong expectation. And I don't have all day to sit here and work out a particular issue like that for one computer, one time, using parts I'll never use again. It's just a unique combination of parts with a unique case. We're never going to build another one, likely. And the next one we build will be different than that, and the one after that will be different than that. And we customize our parts based on each individual build, including aesthetics and budget, and of course, capability, performance. So that's my logic. I just can't spend all day trying to research something for one build. Or these builds will be in like part 10 and part 11 for something that really should be no more than about 2 parts. We sometimes go to a 3-part build if something goes sideways, something goes wrong, and then we have to figure out why. But if everything goes correctly, we're normally 2 parts. 1 part to prep the board and get everything installed and tested, BIOS updated, Windows installed. That's about a 2-hour process. And then getting the board and other components, power supply, etc., into the case, get it cabled up. That is sometimes longer than 2 hours. It depends what kind of cooler we're using and how complicated that is to set up. On a basic build like this, it should only take about 30 minutes. But of course, me talking and explaining everything while I'm doing it takes me a lot longer than, let's say, if I was off camera and just solely focused on this and not worried if I'm in frame and if my connection's good and what the chat room is saying. There's a lot of distraction happening here. And I do my best to balance it all out with getting something done. So let me grab my isopropyl alcohol and a Q-tip, and let's get the top of the CPU clean. Now look, this isn't really that important. When people sit here and emphasize this crazy amount of crazy expensive cryonaut or whatever compounds, and they talk about some fancy way they're cleaning it, it's ridiculous in my opinion. The bulk of your CPU's cooling is going to be from your thermal application, making as good of contact as possible to the top of the CPU and the bottom of the cooler. If there's some contaminants, if there's a little bit of thermal compound from the other one, like just little bits and pieces, yeah, it's not going to cool as well. But we're talking like maybe 1/3 of 1 degree Celsius difference, maybe. In a worst case, let's say I just didn't even bother cleaning this at all and I just combined 2 thermal compounds together, it might make as much as a 5 degree Celsius difference. But if we're already running at 95, that ship sailed regardless. I'm not aware of anybody, any real customers, I'm not talking about enthusiasts, but actual customers where 5 degrees Celsius one way or the other makes any difference in their life. Because it doesn't. That's just something that happens online. These content creators are extremists, many of them, and the information they're providing you is extreme. And if you're, identifying with the extremists, you're watching somebody who's practical and pragmatic, dealing with real customers in the real world, not somebody sitting down spending money on things just because they wonder what if and they've got time and money to spend. I have customers waiting, and I'm trying my best to get to all of them as soon as possible. And that includes my viewers, right? Waiting for the next video, waiting for the next part. There's a sense of pressure. I have to get it done because I have a bunch of other things to do. We've got another laptop to review. We've got a NAS coming in from Minis Forum to review. We have another NAS from Synology coming in to review. I mean, I am just trying to keep up. And the longer it takes me to finish something, the further backed up I get and the more stress I feel, it all weighs on my shoulders. Then the companies are like, hey, we sent you that thing. Are you ever going to review it? Okay. So, and I realize all of that explanation just ate up a bunch of time where I'm not doing anything. That's the irony of it all. Let me set this, just grab this here for a second. I don't want the alcohol in this to eat into my bench. Let me grab one more and we'll clean the new cooler we just got, because I don't know what's on the bottom of it or how well it was cleaned. And again, the difference between the way it is now and when I've cleaned it may be 1 degree of difference in cooling. And that, look, if you're running that hot, that 1 degree of cooling is actually important to you, you've done something wrong. You either have not installed your cooler correctly, you're putting too much voltage to the CPU, or you have an inadequate cooler for that CPU. So I don't see a scenario other than the extremists that are pushing the hardware beyond the way it was designed to run, and therefore they need this sort of ridiculous over-the-top cooling, or maybe they don't need it. It's more of a placebo, perhaps, that makes them feel good that they're doing something with consumer-based electronics, which is sort of like trying to put a turbo on a child's remote-controlled car. Consumer-based electronics are built in such a way as to be very robust, very difficult for consumers to break. It's not like, scientific lab equipment where you need to be a professional and handle the equipment correctly. The equipment is tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars. So for example, Hewlett-Packard makes a whole series of medical equipment like centrifuges. I don't think any of you own a centrifuge. And if you do, I don't think you would just buy one and plug it in and start using it without any formal education. And as such, when people are, doing these extreme things to home-based computers, it seems silly to me because I'm not sure if they're kidding themselves, if they actually think they're accomplishing anything. But in the real world of, doing this for a living, it's just not a thing. I'm not getting calls from people like that, and I'm not getting requests for systems like that. It's just a hobbyist, and when I say hobbyist, in extreme. It goes to a far extreme. You could buy a pair of running shoes for $50, be happy with them. Or you could be an extreme professional runner, and you might spend $3,000 on a pair of shoes because they're more comfortable, they give you better grip, you can turn sharper. And so if you're watching somebody who's a running extremist, they're going to recommend extreme equipment. But if you're just like the rest of us, and maybe you run every once in a while and you're not in any races, then what you're doing is you're buying the tools, but you're not really using them, and you're paying a lot of money for things that you're not using, and it's your own money. Look, I'm not going to tell you how to spend your money, but I can tell you if we were to apply that like to the work I do, let's say if I was selling shoes and we're talking about shoes, the average customer that comes in and shops for those kind of shoes, the ones that are $2,000 and $3,000 a pair, very rarely ever happens in a regular shoe store. It'd almost have to be a specialty shop or maybe a shop on YouTube. Okay. So I am trying to be practical and to remind you guys about what practicality is and what it means. And at the end of the day, you're still buying consumer-based hardware. You know, it's not this kind of stuff that you know, somebody working in a lab in physics and quantum mechanics would have, or quantum computing. Now, if you're building a quantum computing computer, that's a different story. All right, let me just throw this away because it's got rubbing alcohol and thermal compound grease on it, and I don't want it to get on my desk or my fingers. And once we get Studio C properly set up, I'll have a trash can over there, but for right now, there's barely room for me. I'm the trash can. So bear with me for a second. These are live unscripted videos, and so you see everything happening in real time as it happens with no rehearsals and no scripts. So what happens, happens. What can I tell you? We're ready to put this cooler onto the CPU, and I'm going to put thermal compound on the CPU only, not on the cooler. If this cooler were in fact brand new, it would have thermal compound already on it, at least this one from AMD. Not all coolers do, but the manufacturers, when you get a cooler from the manufacturer of the CPU, it'll always have thermal compound on it. Pre-applied, just ready to go. Just make sure your CPU is clean, put it on top. You do not apply thermal compound to both, one or the other. If I were to apply thermal compound to the bottom of this giant heatsink, where would I know where to center it? If I just put a dab of thermal compound on the CPU, how do I know it's spreading evenly? I will never be able to see it. So what I do is I grab my thermal compound and a nitrile glove, which I have up here, and I just finger paint. It's just like an oil paint, and that should be about the texture. If the texture is really dry and clumpy, you have old thermal compound, and I recommend you throw it away and don't use it. The expensive cryonaut stuff, it doesn't necessarily cool any better than the stuff I have, but it'll stay, supposedly, it won't dry out as quickly as regular thermal compound. I mean, you could use toothpaste. Toothpaste works as a good thermal compound, but it dries out so fast, it won't last very long at all. You'll have to replace it because it'll keep drying out very, very quickly. This is much more reasonable. This will last for years. Cryonaut will last for tens of years. So if you're somebody that's going to put it together once and be done with it, it makes sense to buy that cryonaut. If you're looking to cool even better, don't waste your money on thermal compound because, again, it may be a 2 to 3 degrees Celsius difference, if any. In most cases, you won't see any benefit from it at all because when you calculate in the temperature of the room changing between and during the tests, you have to allow for a variance of that room temperature unless you're in a temperature-controlled sealed room, which I don't think you are. Your measurements will not be accurate. You're going to see what you want to see. So that looks like the end of that particular tube. And if it's not enough, it's okay to add more of the same. Never mix two thermal compounds that are different, and only apply it to either the CPU or the heatsink, one or the other. I think that's enough, but if it isn't, I have more of the exact same thermal compound right here. And just to be safe, I could add a little bit more. Well, that's way more than enough. Okay. And what I can do is if I feel like I put too much on there, when I spread this around, which, by the way, let's see if I can go to camera 2 on this. When I spread this thermal compound around, if I feel like I put too much on, just lift up the finger that has the most compound on it and use a different finger that's clean. And then you'll end up getting more thermal compound off of the CPU and onto the glove. And then, of course, if you're like, whoops, I took off too much, go back to one of the fingers. Like my first finger had a lot of extra on there. And we're just trying to essentially put a coat of primer on there, okay? I don't want to see the metal behind it any differently than painting the wall of a house or a garage. I want to see the paint. I don't want to see the drywall nails or the patches. And then what I'll do is I tap up and down on this. And what that does is it creates an uneven surface across the entirety of the CPU that when I squish down the heatsink, it'll flatten all that out. That prevents those air bubbles that you'll see, again, extremist YouTube videos demonstrating that don't really cause any difference in cooling one way or the other. But because it's so easy to do this, I mean, why not? It's not going to hurt anything. When it comes to putting the CPU cooler on, I just want to see where the CPU is going to plug in, or the cooler is going to plug in. It's going to plug in over here. So that means this will go on this way. If I turn it around and put it on this way, then my cable has to run along the side here, which isn't terrible, but again, with a glass case that everybody can see inside, I don't want them to see this cable. So by putting it up towards this between the CPU and the plug, we're running at the shortest distance possible, and that's going to make it look a lot more aesthetically pleasing. I'm going to lift this lever here, and that lowers one side of the little bracket. We want to latch that little bracket. Let's see which way we want to go. This way. Right here. What I'm trying to do is show you what I'm doing, but in doing that, I'm working away from it, and I cannot see because you guys have the good view of it. So I'm going to turn it towards me, but at least you have an idea of what I'm doing here. Somebody should. And then we just lock that one piece down right onto the latch. And we're going to come over to the other side, and we're going to do the same thing over here. Make sure that this little metal latch is going to go down and over the little plastic catch. You might have to push down on it. Just like that. And then one way or the other, this latch has a lot of resistance. And we want to go and when we put the resistance down onto this latch, it's going to lock itself down really tight. Just like that. Now this is hooked up. It's got a good solid surface mount to the top of our CPU for optimal heat transfer. And then we've just plugged the fan in right here on the CPU fan header. If I can plug it in straight, that's the tricky part. Okay. And then I would grab like a nylon zip tie and just clean this up right here. Now, normally, hold on a minute, I think I put this on backwards. This is not a CPU fan. Our CPU fan is actually up here. And you can only put this on one of two ways. I was thinking, as I was putting this on, I was doing it backwards. So we're going to just lift that up. And because our thermal compound application is brand new, it's just going to sit right back down. We don't have to do it again. Once you've released this side of it, then you're going to just put a little pressure down on this side. And sometimes it can help if you have a little screwdriver or something that you can help just push down on that and release it. I need to spin it the other way. Usually this AMD logo that's up here is going to face our IO shield. And, you know, I'm busy talking to you and not paying attention to what I'm doing, so I apologize for that. I'll grab a small little screwdriver here just to help me get that little metal piece pushed down. It's not that tight, it just doesn't have anywhere to grip it. And then we'll just pull it away. I just poked myself. So it's one of the reasons I don't like this kind of style of install are these plastic bits that we're connecting onto. They can dry up, get brittle, and break off. And then your CPU cooler isn't making full contact with the CPU anymore. And if you don't have a case with a window, let's just say, then you have no idea, you know, because the system detects the fan is running. Yeah. Hurted myself there. Let's turn this around the other way. And we'll try this one more time. Second time's a charm. It only goes on one of two ways, so I only could have gotten it wrong once. Thought it was looking a little weird. All right, so we're going to seat that back down. And then make sure that that's loose. There, that's on. And then this one will go over there. That went on a lot easier too. But that maybe not necessarily because of the rotation, it goes on the same, but because I'm getting experience, right? And so as I'm doing it more, I'm getting faster at it. And they're not difficult to do. I just haven't done one of these kind of latch down CPU coolers in a long time. So I'm a bit out of practice is all I'm saying. Now the CPU fan is going to plug in here. I was wondering why I only had one. This is the all-in-one cooler. This will be the CPU fan. And it would have worked, don't get me wrong. It still would have been okay. It wouldn't have cooled any differently. It's just I wasn't liking the way the cabling was looking. I'm like, why is my cable down here by my video card? That was my first indication. Until then, I didn't realize I was putting it on backward, rotating it 180 degrees from where it ideally would be for the aesthetic view that I'm going for. So what I'll do is I'll grab the rest of this, which is what I was saying earlier before I realized my mistake. I'll grab the extra slack cable on the CPU fan here, and I will grab a zip tie and tie that up. And while I grab those, I'll get rid of this and this and this, and I'll be right back. I have all of my zip ties over here instead of near me on the bench, which again is a situation I will correct once we get Studio C organized. I used to have these right below me when I was working in Studio B. And I can't do that right now because of how cluttered everything is. So I appreciate you bearing with me here as I continue my one-man band videos. All right, let's go over here. And this is super easy to do while it's outside of the case. Now, regardless if this ends up being taken off or not, if it doesn't cool well enough, I'll probably still leave it zip tied up like this because it makes it easier to keep it on the shelf without having it snag on anything. So I don't see a downside to doing this. In most cases, if we were to take this off and use it on another motherboard, it'll likely still be about the same distance, even on a different board. And if not, then I'll cut the ties, but I'm optimistic that this is going to work. Just need to verify it. So yeah, I did have a customer bring me a machine that they said they smelled something burning, and when I opened it up, the cooler had come off, the plastic had broken off, and the CPU, this was an Athlon CPU back in the day, had cracked in half. So that was done. Yeah, look how pretty that is. That's what I'm talking about. And then we can test this now to see if it'll actually cool this 9600X. If so, if you're building one, it might be a way you can save some money and get one of these used air coolers, unless you want to go with a liquid cooler. I just realized our power supply came with some zip ties I could have used. That's okay, I had to put the other stuff away anyway. There's our power cable. And then this here is our power supply. There is no documentation. Hey, for 37 bucks, we expect. And this just looks like it just went through a shrink wrapping machine. There's no seal on it. It's just like melted closed, the plastic. It's fine with me, I don't care, it's new. So we'll get that opened up. And let me pull up the chat room because I can't see you guys. Oh, my browser crashed. Good old Google. Good old Goo-Goo. Peter VZ with a €1 super chat, joining us from the Netherlands. Sam LK with a 99-cent super chat. Thank you, guys. Elijah 52 Dickens with a $20 super chat. Thank you, Elijah. So since I'm not familiar with this power supply, PSU brand, it's another good reason to test it outside of the case first. But more importantly, by the way, that's how tiny that is. More importantly, I want to pressure test stress test the CPU cooler to see under Cinebench load if it'll keep our 9600 within a reasonable temperature. I have no idea. Sam LK with a $1.99 super chat says, keep on teching. Well, that's all I know how to do at this point, so I don't have much choice. All right, let's see, what do we have? It's pretty basic. Couple of SATA cables, floppy drive cable, Molex. Wow, okay. We have a single GPU power connector, which is appropriate for a 500-watt power supply. And SATA, more SATA motherboard power, so that'll go on right by me. Okay, and then this one should be CPU power. Yes, that'll go on right over here, like so. Let me grab a power switch to plug onto this. I'll just use this one right here. Power switch. And that's going to go right over here by the power cables on a Mini-ITX board. What's interesting, this board has the USB cable and the front panel headers, one right above the other. One's missing a pin from the top row, one is missing a pin from the bottom row. That way you can't even turn it on backwards. It will not fit if you're putting a USB plug it's the plug onto the front panel socket, because it looks like, it's missing the pin. The missing pin won't line up no matter how you do it. So don't worry about getting it wrong. If you're like, how come this isn't going on? It's because you're on the wrong header. So that's how easy that is to solve. I think that's our power switch location right there, if I'm not mistaken. And now we're ready to give this power. Now there is no power switch back here. All right, so the minute I plug power into this, we're going to get power here. So just to be safe, what I should do is go ahead and plug the keyboard, mouse, and HDMI in now. Also, if you look on the back of these power supplies that Amazon is selling, some still have the little red voltage switch for 110 or 220 or 120 and 240, whatever it is. Well, we used to do that in the 90s. Modern power supplies detect the voltage coming in and adjust. So if I plugged 110 or a 240 into this, there's no switch I need to manually move. If you see an inexpensive power supply on Amazon and look at the pictures and you see the little red recessed, it's a little slider. It doesn't look like a switch, but it's like it's red. And if you see that back by the, it's usually right by the plug here, you're buying a very old, obsolete design. And if you want to, I mean, don't let me stop you, but you may not be aware of that till you get it. HDMI. Oh, we could probably plug internet into it too, just because everything's already configured. So let's do HDMI first. We'll plug that in here. And our internet cable is where I'm standing on it. Of course, I'm always standing on them. We'll plug that in right over here. And then we've also got keyboard and mouse. So I'll grab that from over here. Set that on the counter in front of me. Pick any USB port at all. That'll be fine. Make sure I turn these on since they are wireless. And now I think I'm safe to plug power in. And I will plug that in right here. And in theory, when I hit this button, yeah, something just started and stopped. Why did it do that? One more time? Okay. All right, looks like we're running. And then I should see the RAM start to glow there when it's initialized. That's what I'm saying. I think it's a good looking cooler, especially for this case. And it's inexpensive. It's easy to install. And let's go to our, there's a close-up right there. Okay. And keep in mind, this is the top of the motherboard. So this AMD would be up towards the top, except that this motherboard's going to go in sort of, well, it's going to go in 90 degrees from normal, where this part of it's going to be pointing down instead of to the left. So that logo is going to be over here. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's go to the camera, or this is the desktop that we just booted to here. And that CPU fan is dead silent. Let's go to full screen for me so I can see it the way you guys see it at home. Let's bring up HWI info and let's see if this thing can work for us or not. This cooler. If you're never really doing much with your computer than browsing, watching videos, checking email, this cooler will be fine. But if you ever have a chance of pressing the system hard, like with video editing or uh-oh, I think I just knocked my cable loose. Hold on a second. What just happened? Everything just shut off on me. Well, I think we might have a bad power supply, ladies and gentlemen. So close and yet so far. Let me unplug it and plug it back in again. Let's go back over to camera 1 and I'll show you what's happening. Let's see, camera 1. Yeah. So the system just turned off, and when I hit the power button, you'll see everything light up and then go back off again. Or not. Okay. I think I might have a bad power supply here. The fan is running, but I don't see any reason why that should have shut off on me. So let's go back to the desktop again. And we'll see if it does it again. I've verified my cable is plugged in all the way, so I don't know. Right click, full screen here, and then we'll go to hardware info. Either that or I don't have a good seat with my cooler, and the CPU shouldn't be overheating that quickly. Let's see what it says our temps are before we go any further. some reason it's not showing me everything. Sensor status. Geez, it's all the way over there? Why did it move all the way over there? Yikes, that is bizarre. Okay, no, temps look okay. We have 6 cores and 12 threads. So I think I'm looking at the right screen here. 34, 33, those are good. So let's try Cinebench and see what happens. As I mentioned, it didn't last very long with that other cooler. But I'm hopeful this will do it because it's inexpensive and it looks good. So let's start the multi-core test, and usually within the first 2 minutes we'll reach peak temperature here. Let's keep an eye on what's going on. And in fact, let's see if I can stretch this up and get a little more info. I do hear the fan getting faster, and that's what it's supposed to do. I'm good with that. Oh, it's really going fast now. We're looking at our maximum temp if we look down this right side at particularly core 0 through core 5. And we're going to watch this test as it counts down, or yeah, it's counting down from 10 minutes here. So far, so good. We were already about the point of concern on the other cooler at this point of the test. Now, the math on this, if you do the research without doing the work, says this cooler is good for up to 125 watts, and the CPU says it'll run from 65 up to 125. So in theory and on paper, it all looks like it should work. I'm going to keep an eye on it here for the next 40 seconds. But we're not even breaking 80. I mean, that is, whew, that's a relief. Might as well do a little cleanup while we're waiting here. Get rid of some of the trash laying around here. Well, there's some of it anyway. I don't understand why it was powering off on me. That is bizarre, and I am concerned about this power supply, but I don't know. We'll see if it continues to happen. I have the 30-day return on Amazon. The reason I know it would be the power supply is we ran this through a bunch of tests yesterday. Not yesterday, last Friday, and it never exhibited that behavior. And the only thing we've really changed, apart from the cooler, of course, is the power supply. And the cooler would not cause that unless the machine was overheating and shutting off to protect itself. So we're now about 3 minutes in, and our highest temp reached is about 70, 78. And on core 0 through 5, the highest we've seen is about 76. So that's really, really good. Really good. Let me jump back over here. Let me go to camera 1. And let me put myself in the corner down here. And we can watch this together. And while we wait, let me just poke over here to the chat room and see what you guys have to say. Sam says, I bet the no-name power supply caused a random shutdown. Maybe. Here's the other problem, though. I normally put the power supply over on this side of the desk, and I'm leaning against the power cable, which means if I'm pulling on it by leaning on it, I could have disconnected it here or at the surge protector. I don't know yet. I feel pretty good about this running now that I'm going to assume it's a Carey issue and not a power supply issue. When it's in the case properly and the cables are run properly, if it shuts down, at least I will know immediately what to do, and changing the power supply out on this case is like 5 minutes. I just need to make sure I do it before I do any cable management, you know, put this through the test just to make sure. But I think it's okay. But I have 30 days to return it if need be, and the return is free. Mark Leibowitz wants to know what we use to power your Molex. Great question. And let me go back full screen over on this side here so I can see what our test results are. They're far too little in a little tiny window for me to see. Our maximum temp so far, we're what, 6 minutes in the test, and we are seeing 77. Oh, I can't complain about that. That's really, really good. That's really good. And this is what I was hoping for. The only final concern I've got is if the cooler is too tall and we put the motherboard in this case and can't close the glass. But we can find that out really quick. But we got to figure out if that's even anything to be concerned about. Now, there are measurements that you can look up. Once again, you can do all the math online and you could conclude, yes, it should or should not work. But I prefer to not trust what I read online. Just because they tell you those are what the numbers are, how do you know those numbers are measured correctly? And if you actually do the work, you're going to find out in real life. And it's a pretty easy test to just simply mount the board and see if you can close the panel on it. I think we'll be okay, but it's close. But if it won't pass Cinebench, if it gets too hot, it's a non-issue. And the system just shut off on me just now, all by itself for no apparent reason. Unfortunately, I don't think I have another small form factor power supply to use. I was not planning for this scenario. Usually a power supply works or it doesn't. And when you run into a situation like this, go back full screen here, the best solution is simply replace the power supply. I would not recommend you trying to repair anything. We do everything outside of the case explicitly for the reasoning that everything is easy to remove, disconnect, and put back in the package if we need to. This is not a normal scenario, but I also don't normally use no-name brand power supplies. Imagine how embarrassed I would be to deliver it to a customer like this, and what sort of, you know, I don't know, customer confidence a customer would lose in me, that they couldn't trust me to pick good components. Otherwise, heck, what did I hire you for? I could have picked bad components all by myself. What did I hire Carey for? So that's why we run these tests, and I say, okay, I've never had any experience with this brand, and this brand apparently is causing an issue with a system staying on. Now, first impressions, you know, they're the most important ones. I likely will never use this brand again. However, it may be worth it to give them one more chance, to send it back to Amazon and say, send me a replacement. But then how do we finish up what we're doing today? Well, I think the way I would progress is simply determining if we assume, because it looks like we're well in the clear on this CPU cooler. So we assume the CPU cooler is adequate and we do not need to use an all-in-one liquid cooler. Then the question is, will the glass panel go back on once the motherboard's in, or will this cooler stick out too far? So looking here on this side of the case, we've got our PCIe riser cable here, and that appears to be... I've got an email? Thank you. It appears to be tied down here with like a strap up against the side of the case. I don't know if we have to take that strap off. What that does is it moves our video card slot through this think of this as a video card slot extension, and moves it over here vertically to put your card in vertically if you're going to use a card. In the meantime, we have to move it out of the way because the way that it bulges out keeps the motherboard from sitting in there. So I'm going to guess, and this is probably in the directions, but I'm not going to read them. I'm going to guess we just remove this little piece right here. I'll just take that one screw out, right there, and then we can pull this, I think, yeah. And so this piece here, it has a little cover on it. And if you take this cover off, we've got this cable, and that's going to seat into the slot we would normally use for our graphics card. So I'm not really interested in that right now. But what I am interested in is seeing if this motherboard's going to fit, well, with this cooler on it, that we can still close the case panel. So luckily, that'll only take us a second to find out here real quick. What I need to do essentially is make sure our I/O shield faces down. And it would probably be beneficial to set the entire case down, which, by the way, without the glass on it, it weighs maybe 4 pounds. And there's only 4 screws that are used on a Mini-ITX board install. Now you see how high up this cooler is, right? So what I'm curious about is if we secure the board in, which I think we can safely do. And I'll tell you what, I'm only going to put 2 screws in. I'll just do opposite corners. Then I can put this back up. Because if the glass will not close, if it's going to hit this before it closes, we will have to go to the Arctic 2 liquid cooler. So when you talk about doing research, that's a lot of research to do, right? What's the clearance allowed for the case for the cooler? What cooler is adequate for the CPU? Which CPU works with that motherboard? You know, if you're going to put a graphics card in, how big of a graphics card can you put in, and under what conditions? So example, if we put the 3.5-inch drive in and it limits how tall the graphics card can be or how long it is, versus if you don't have the drive and then that space is open for a bigger card. So you can research and research, assuming you know to look all that up. But a lot of times you don't know what to look up. You can't foresee the problems that you don't have in many cases unless you have recent experience. And you know, you're still got PTSD from it. You're like, make sure that doesn't happen again. But you can see that really sticks out. And that could be a problem. It does also explain why it works so well. Let's see, which panel is it? This one's going to be the left side. This one here should be the one we want. Not going to happen. Wah, wah. See that? Not even close. Look at that gap. So, lesson learned. We know that the cooler does work to cool the 9600X. And if we were in a different design case, it wouldn't be a problem. We know that that power supply, that no-name brand, something's wrong with it. We can verify that by just taking another spare power supply and hooking it up. I don't expect it to behave any differently. And beyond that, we are going to have to put the Arctic cooler in here. Yeah, it's not going to work. So we learn together. And this is why I show this stuff. Now, for me, having a spare one of these coolers laying about, that's great. For you, you might be pissed off about it. So, you know, make sure you order from a place that you can always get those free returns, like with Amazon for 30 days. It doesn't cost me anything to send anything back. I don't mind. I mean, at least that way I know that this unique combination of parts does not exist anywhere else on the planet. Nobody has built this with this. Only I have. So in order to find that research, I'm going to have to create it myself. And it's just faster for me to do the research this way. Even if it means it's a trip back and forth to a couple of parts, it's not really costing me more than my time. And now I know for a fact, not just taking somebody's word for it. And I encourage all of you to do the same. You know, don't take anybody's word for stuff on the internet. Use your own experience. And if you run into some trouble, some issues you're having difficulty resolving, then write to us, send us an email, leave us a comment. In most cases, I would encourage you to just write us an email, because when it comes to helping people personally, we don't necessarily need to discuss that in a comment section of a YouTube video. If you want to discuss it publicly with the community, join our forum, our message boards. We have a link to them in the video notes below this video. We have a link to everything we've used in the video, even though everything doesn't quite work together. And I don't know that I'm going to really insult this brand. It's a first impression. It's not a good one, but that, I mean, clearly they've got good reviews. I think we just got a bad one. Let me look around real quick and see if I might have a small form factor power supply on one of these shelves, but I do not remember having one. So bear with me for a second. And if you have questions for me, since there's a delay between when I talk and when you hear me, this gives you guys a chance to respond as well. And let me just look around. Where would I have one? If I had one, where would it be? Probably with the other spare power supplies, right? I have lots of regular power supplies. I just don't think I have another SFX power supply. I don't use them very often. Oh, wait a minute. What's this? Oh, we found something here, ladies and germs. An FSP group. Okay, it's very dusty. It's not a spring chicken, I'll tell you that. Let me come around. This one actually has a switch on the back. I don't know what the voltage is on it, but perhaps the show can go on. And if this is adequate, I'll just send the other one back for a refund and move on with life. Let's see. Let me get the dust off of it. I got a switch. It's FSP. Adaptive PFC with noise killer, full range. Huh. I wonder what this came out of. Got the old-fashioned ketchup and mustard cables on it. I don't know what the voltage or the wattage is on this. It's pretty old. And the writing is super, super tiny. I think it's just a 300 watt. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to use this, but it's an FSP 300, and I'm guessing the 300 is 300 watts. Yeah, it's a 300 watt. 80 plus rated, so it's not that old, but I mean, it's not really going to give us much overhead on this build. If our CPU is up to 165, it should do the job, at least as far as, like, you know, continuing the build, but I wouldn't leave it in there. Oh, I guess they must have included some thermal compound with that CPU cooler. Well, let's give her a shot and see what happens. Why not? Why the heck not? And what are you saying in the chat room? Ben Laird with a £2 super chat. Thank you, Ben. Thomas says we're playing new names by YouTube today. Yeah, for sure. Mark says, where do you find a spare power supply? Probably a bowling alley. Oh, because he's picking up a spare. Thanks for our... So that's a dad joke in honor of our friend Mitch Morrison. And if you talk to him, let him know we're thinking of him. Well, hopefully you'll be able to tell him yourself here in a couple of weeks. He's doing well. Doing good. And you're reminding me to check email?
Again, for number 2.
Oh, all right. 2 for 1. All right, well, let's do that before we move on. Emails. Oh, our friend Buster sends a PayPal contribution. Thank you, Buster. He says, hi, Mara, this is better for you, a little bit towards your renovation of Studio C. Your friend Buster. Well, thank you, Buster. And an Amazon gift card from Buster, too. Hello, Carey and Mara. I think I will use this method rather than chat, as you will receive the full amount. I am glad you received the birthday card that is just over a week. Your friend Buster, and a $25 Amazon gift card from our friend Buster. Thank you so much. You know, we do get the gift cards faster and without any 30% takeaway from YouTube. So, I mean, we're not going to complain about any contribution through any method. But definitely, if there's an order of preference, Amazon gift cards are right up there at the top, and they will certainly get used because it's all being spent at Amazon anyway. So thank you for that. Thank you very much, as always. Let me plug this power supply in just real quick, and I want to make sure the machine still doesn't turn off. I mean, I might be coming to a false conclusion with the other power supply. Maybe coincidentally, I have accidentally created a separate issue here in the handling of the board, but of course, I don't think I did. Oh, well, I can see a problem right now. This only has the 4-pin EPS power connector. And that's not going to work for us. We're going to need to use an 8-pin. This won't provide the voltage this chip needs. So I wish I didn't notice that sooner. But that's going to stop this right in its tracks. Now, well, we could go forward with the cooler install. I kind of feel like, what's the point? Because I would have to put a regular size power supply outside of the case, And that's where things get really hairy, and it makes the build much more difficult than it's already become, trying to work around pre-installed parts. So as I mentioned, sometimes these get to a part 3, and this is exactly a scenario where that would be justified, since we now have to go back to file a return and then decide if we want to go ahead and try again with the same brand, or file a return and order something else. I didn't want to put a lot of money into this because, well, it's an attractive build. I'm trying to make it budget friendly. And I'm doing that for 2 reasons. One, because we have limited funds to work with here, as we are sponsored by our viewers and don't have sponsors. The other thing is we want to inspire you to be able to, if you're on a limited income as we are, still build something worth building that you're not sacrificing quality, that you're not building something that's going to feel slow in a year or 2, or it's going to require a lot of work or maintenance, or you're going to have to upgrade it, right? This is a very good budget build once we get the part configuration figured out. I think $140 for the case is a fair price, but I do not like that all the I/O is down underneath. That means anytime I want to plug anything into the USB ports in the back, I've got to tilt it back to access that panel, right? It's all right underneath here now to access, even plugging the monitor in. If I had any criticism of the case, it's not so much the height of the cooler. That's common with a Mini-ITX case. They're all going to have limits regarding that. This is no different. But it did answer the question if this cooler would cool a 9600X, and it does, and that the AM4 socketed CPU coolers do fit and function fine on an AM5 socketed motherboard. So we've answered those 2 questions, which you might have already known, but I've never had this experience. And until I have the experience, I don't really know if what I'm being told is truthful. So now I know, to my level of satisfaction, what the truth is, and that may come in handy in future builds. We'll see. That's why having a spare part like this on the shelf is an ideal choice for me, because I don't have one. I don't have any clip-on AMD coolers, and the fact that that one's RGB, there's no telling where that could end up in the future, and even on a micro ATX or regular ATX build, that might look and fit perfectly and cool well for an otherwise brand new motherboard, brand new chip. Or it could be used in diagnosing, right? If I need a cooler and I want to snap it on there without having to screw things down. Now, my understanding is when we put the liquid, the all-in-one liquid freezer 2 that I have here from Arctic, I'm pretty sure that's not going to snap down. Some do. So we might be taking those little plastic pieces back off again. I won't know till I get there. We're an hour and 40 minutes into today's video, and apart from introducing the parts and doing a little bit of work here, we're kind of shut down with the power supply issue. Now, again, I could just grab another power supply, pop it on there, and just verify. And I will need to do that. I don't want to send this back for no reason. Well, not this one. This is long past its return period. I don't want to send the other one back and come to find out I've had a whole different issue altogether that had nothing to do with the power supply, and then that just delays the build. So what we can do, just because we have some time, is grab a regular ATX power supply like we did last Friday for testing, and we didn't experience this problem, and verify that we're still not experiencing the problem, which is what I'm expecting. But once again, until we test it in reality, we're speculating. It is possible I have done something that shorted the board out. So for example, and I'll give you an example. When I was putting the little clip on for the cooler, I hit one of the headers and it went right into my skin and it cut me. Did I bend that header, the little pin, and it could be touching another pin? I could have. I was so focused on ow, I didn't look to see if I might have bent it. So if we go back to the board where my fingers were, it would have been this was facing this way, right? So when I was getting this piece off, it was off this side or this side. So it would have been over here that I would have slipped and hit something. So I really need to check all the pins very closely and ensure that when my finger hit, that I didn't bend the pin so it's contacting another pin. If I did do that, then there's nothing wrong with the power supply. See what I'm getting at? Then it's user error. And since I'm not sure which pin it is, I really need to look closely at every single set of pins and make sure they're all standing 100% upright and happy. And so far, everything looks good. I don't see anything obvious. Grab a flashlight, just double check. It would have been this side of the board. So let me just check these pins here. No, these are all straight. Those two are straight. Those two are straight. But that's an example of a user-created issue where the user doesn't even realize they've done anything. And it's just worth checking before pointing blame. So just to verify, if we plug the original test power supply we had back in, we never exhibited an unscheduled power off. Rapidly unscheduled power shut off. I don't even know why I'm holding on to that other FSP power supply. I don't know what motherboard would ever use that these days. It came out of something. Maybe what I should do is both. Maybe I should send the power supply in for a replacement and order a different make and model, and then keep one as a spare SFX power supply. Right? Wouldn't that make sense? Because I don't have a spare one now. But I also don't build those very often. So I could buy a spare power supply that sits on a shelf for years and never gets used. But you know, if you're a shop and you're going to be inventoried, you're going to have an inventory, and you're going to help customers that roll in with whatever. You never quite know when you might need something like that. And if it's cheap enough, it probably makes sense to just order and have an extra one. Let me get the power switch hooked up here. What do we have? Hard drive LED, power switch. Power LED. We'll do the power LED first. And that should go right about there. I do need a flashlight to work in here. Okay, there's the power LED. I think that's on correctly. The power switch goes on besides that. Right to the next two pins over on the top row. And the hard drive LED goes below the power LED. Positive below positive, negative below negative. Make sure they're fully seated. I'm going to leave USB stuff unplugged for now, just because. And then power cable here. We'll make sure the switch is off. And then I also need an HDMI cable. Right here. And that's going to go. How do I get to it? right there. And then our Ethernet cable. That's going to go right there. Gosh, that's so weird to be on the bottom. And of course, when we hook up an internal power supply, we will be plugging power in right there. And then it runs through an extension cord up to the main power supply, or the only power supply that would be installed in the case here. So since we know we're not going to have any cooler problem, let me hit the power button here. Well, first let's turn that on and then hit the power. Okay, power LED is blinking. So I guess that's our hard drive LED. I don't know what our power LED is. It's blue, and it either blinks or stays steady, which sounds like it's just a hard drive LED. Oh, I see. The blue light turns red, and when it's red and flashing, that's your hard drive reading and writing, and the blue is simply power, and it's all looking like it's one LED. So that explains that. So they are working. They are hooked up correctly. Let's go back over to this desktop here, and let's go. Let me see full screen on my side. And once again, we're going to try hardware info. We'll get that started up. And then we'll run Cinebench. Gosh, it really bugs me that it's opening like that. Let's go to Cinebench. Hit start. We're going to start this test again. Now we don't care if the cooler works or not because it doesn't fit. I only care if the system will turn back off before completing the test. We have not been able to complete the test without the system powering off. And the only thing we're changing is the power supply to verify that it is a power supply issue. But at the same time, we're going to keep an eye on these temps. And while that's working, let me come back over to camera 1 and put myself in a corner again. So let me get rid of this. We're done with these for right now. And what else can I move? Got a Ziploc bag we might be needing. I don't know what that went to. Oh, we got some of those pigtails we can throw away. The screwdriver can go back in the drawer. This needs to be cleaned so I can put it back on the shelf. So let me clear this off while we're waiting. I'm going to set this right over here. And I'm going to set these zip ties back over here. Okay. And let me grab a cold Gatorade while I'm back here too. So overall, I'm not upset with the case. It's okay. There's always going to be a sacrifice in convenience when you're dealing with a Mini-ITX case. You're just very limited in space. And it's, you know, I made it very clear. I don't really look forward to doing Mini-ITX builds. They look good when they're done, but man, they can run hot. They can be a challenge to keep cool. And with regards to your cooling components, that's part of the reason they run hot, is you're very limited on that. If you notice the little white bands underneath here, that's all your RGB. That's all going to light up as RGB. If I were to plug that into the motherboard header, we've got one of these is our ARGB cable. And somewhere on the motherboard, we should have an ARGB plug. And you should only do this with the system off, but you know me, I'm a troublemaker. I'm assuming this board has ARGB. It has it all the way on the other side. So for me to plug this in is going to be a little bit of a challenge. I would not run it this way. You want to run all your cables behind the board. But I was hoping I had another ARGB header on here, but I don't. It looks like we only have the one. And it is located... Oh, there may be two actually, but they're all located up at the top of the board. And this is a bad idea. But I'm going to do it anyway. Give a little spark to my videos. Ah, so close. Really hard to find them because there's no key on this. It's really hard to figure out where it's lined up correctly and when it isn't. And clearly, if it's not lighting up, I'm not getting it right. Don't mind me, I'm just entertaining myself. No, I'm not seeing it light up. Really helps if I face the connector the right way, right? So I say without a key on it, it's very difficult to identify where the pins are going. Something's lighting up. I think I figured it out. See, to me, it doesn't look like it's on straight. It looks like it's on crooked. But apparently I got it right. It hasn't shut off on us. So I'm guessing we just got a bad power supply. Thomas says, Carey, read the chat. David Graham, Apevia AP 500 watt Mini-ITX. On an on-off switch, I see it used a lot by Mr. Hands. Sold on Amazon for $37. Apevia. We've used Apevia before. We used the Apevia in the Big Beast build for Baby Beast. We used Apevia, and that died on Doug Betts recently. That's what, about 3 years old. Still, I'm not accustomed to seeing power supplies die ever, so I'm a little disappointed to hear that it died. I might go with something a little bit nicer, but you know, something name brand but not expensive. It's still got to fall within a decent budget. I'm not opposed to spending up to $50 on it as I would for a standard power supply. 500 watts is 500 watts. I thought $37 was a bit cheap. If it works, you know, why not? But yeah, we're not powering off anymore. So far, so good. In theory, I should be able to stand this back up, and then you can really see the RGB on it. Probably helps if I don't lift it up by the table, huh? Still really lightweight. You see the G.SKILL logo there. And then our cables would run out the side, right down there like so. Not an ideal scenario, but hey, I'm a professional. Don't try this at home. Or you know what? Go ahead and try it at home. It's a lot of fun. Vermont. Oh, Lugrinia says there isn't a Pevia in the Project Zero build. The fan is getting a bit loud. Yeah, that's my concern, right? Because until we put these other brand name power supplies through a long test, it's hard to know how they stand up to the competitors that we have been using and therefore have been in a long test that have ultimately proven to be very reliable. These brands like EVGA, NZXT. I haven't had a whole lot of luck with Corsair, but you know, there's lots of other brands to choose from besides a Pevia. I just need to go back to Amazon and look. So I think what I'll probably do is go ahead and return this one as an intermittent power off issue and ask for an exchange. Let them send me another one. We'll see if another one does it. And if the next one does it as well, so we don't have to go to a part 4, I'll have another brand, make, and model here that I can immediately switch to keep the video going forward next week. And then we can finish installing the liquid cooler and everything. We'll have to take this cooler off, obviously, but you know, we'll end up with some good spare parts that we will likely need again from that cooler to the other power supply. One or the other will be a spare. If we end up having to send back the replacement and we use our spare, but the spare works, then I'll send the replacement back to Amazon for a second time and then replace it with an identical twin to the spare we ended up using to be our new spare to replace our spare. Then I don't have to go through all this again. I can immediately go right to the shelf and I don't have to shop around. It's been such a long time since I've purchased an SFX power supply. I can't remember what I purchased in the past. I think our test is done. And if I look at, see those results full screen on my side here. What did we get temperature wise? Yeah, I mean, that cooler works really, really well for this. I'm very happy with that. It's too bad it doesn't fit in the case. But just to continue to stress test both the cooler and the power supply, let's do our single core, because again, that's going to ramp those temperatures up pretty good here in the first 2 minutes of the test. We watch this maximum side here. Watch the right side. Right now, our maximum core was temp was core 4, 76. Nope, core 5 got to 79. So I don't know when we do the single core which core it is, but it's only going to run one of these. So you should see one of these run hotter, which looks like it's that one. And we'll keep an eye on it, and we'll let that test run. It's, again, they run for a 10-minute warm-up. Over here, you'll see a countdown. That warms it up for 10 minutes, and then once the 10-minute clock runs out, the benchmark starts. This is just a CPU benchmark, by the way. So if you're wondering, how does the 9600X stack up? There's your Cinebench score right there. Okay, let me get back over here now to our chat room. And I think it'll wrap it up for today's video. We're not getting any more power offs. So I'm confident it is the power supply. I can get a Band-Aid from my finger. And, you know, look. No scars, no progress. That's all I can tell you. In the meantime, I guess I'll put this back in the bag. I'll keep this stuff here with the cooler, right? As who knows in the future, whatever we use this cooler on, it may be appropriate then to use these cables. I mean, I'm happy with the cooler just like that stock. I don't feel the need to add all this extra cabling. In fact, it's the last thing I want to do. But it just depends from one build to the next where something might be a pain in the butt to hook up, and other things might be super easy. You might as well hook it up, kind of a deal. Or that it just, the looks of it, the aesthetic part of it needs to have it. So we have our reasoning per build. And since no two builds are really the same, at least not here, I never quite know what I'm going to want to do with the accessories like this, if I will use them or not. Since I won't know that, we'll just keep them with the power supply on the shelf so I know where they go. Put them back in this, I guess I'll put them in this bag here. And then we'll put these, let's see, these are case screws. We're going to keep those. So the power supply, the power cable, and oh, and it came with some screws as well. So that'll go back to Amazon. Back in the box that shipped in. I'm going to send it back to Amazon exactly the way they sent it to us. And that way we shouldn't have any issues with our return being delayed or denied. Okay. There we go. Who saw that one coming? Got hit with a double whammy, a cooler that's too big, and a power supply. It's not good. Still, not for nothing. Final comments, questions? John Paul Bacon said, ever since the OCZ brand is no more, I've been buying Seasonic exclusive. I've bought 4 Seasonic power supplies and had to return 2 of them for failure. I won't buy them ever again. There's nothing more insulting to me than paying more for the illusion of quality and getting half the quality I'm getting from cheaper brands. So because of my experience, which is limited, I mean, I'm talking about 4 power supplies, any previous Seasonic power supplies I've owned that still work, I'm keeping them, but the return rate on them is too high for me. I can't afford that. I can't even afford to buy them and be competitive in the marketplace. Customers don't know what Seasonic is. So Noctua, Seasonic, I just feel like these are brands that they're putting a heavy tax on their name. Not that I've had any issues with Noctua equipment, but Seasonic equipment has proven too unreliable from my experience. And also too expensive. I don't mind paying more if I'm reducing the odds of having to return it, but to pay more and the odds of returning it go up, that doesn't work in my book. So I am not a fan of Seasonic. But, you know, to each their own. Your experience may be, you know, never had a problem. I don't know. Shop Persian Rugs with a $10 super chat. Sorry I'm very late, he says. Have a great weekend to everyone in here. Well, thank you, and you too. Thank you for the super chat. Andy says it's a good show. All cannot always go as planned. I think it's more interesting when it doesn't go as planned, right? Otherwise, it's kind of boring. It all goes routine. At the same time, when you're planning your own build, you should plan for the unexpected. Don't do it when you're like, you know, on a clock, I've got 45 minutes to get this done kind of a thing. And take your time, enjoy your build, and if you run into an obstacle, I don't know, for me, that's the fun part. It does get frustrating, but I appreciate the challenge, because with those challenges comes education, experience, and it makes us better at what we do. Andy says, thanks, Mr. Holzman and Ms. Marlena. Thank you, Andy. Gainsy95 is really Mark Gaines. Oh, it's Mark Gaines. Of course it is. Hi, Mark. I'm sorry. I should have put that together. Good to see you, my friend. It's been a long time since I've seen you use that name. I know you didn't use it. YouTube is doing it, but you know what I mean. Yeah. How's my temps running on the single core here? I'm not paying attention. Yeah, that cooler is fantastic. I'll tell you what, if I was going to buy a 9600X and just put it in a regular micro ATX or full ATX tower, I wouldn't hesitate to buy that cooler because it's a bargain. That cooler's $40 all day long on Amazon. They got no shortage of them. It looks fantastic, and it's made by the company that makes the CPU, even though it was not designed for that CPU. It works, as you can see, really, really well, and it looks good while doing it, and it's easy to install. So good to know. I'm sure that knowledge will become useful at some point in the future. If not for me, then for one of you. We got another couple minutes here to run the test. And then we'll get a final score here, how many points we're going to get on the single core. Oh man, I'm telling you, those temperatures are fantastic. I'm just a little bummed out I can't use this cooler, but at the same time, I really like the uniqueness of the case. The worst part of it, again, is the I/O being down on the bottom. It's the exact opposite complaint I have with the Thermaltake, the Tower 100, where all the I/O is at the top, and then there's a cover you have to remove to get to the top I/O. I hate that. I hate it. I don't like this any better. I hate it equally as much. But in both cases, and I literally mean computer cases, the cases are so different looking, it's worth it, maybe. I think it's worth it. It's for each one of you to determine if it's worth it. As you can see, I'm not using the Tower 100. It's sitting, I think it's over there. Is that a Tower 100? It's such a big case for a Mini-ITX. It's the single largest Mini-ITX case I've ever seen. I think it's sitting over there. That's what ruins it for me, that top I/O, having to remove the lid to get to it. Having to tip this back to get underneath of it to plug something into the USB ports. Very impractical. But it does look good. The Tower 100 looks good too. And that's the price you're going to pay for the beauty. The vanity gets in the way of the practicality. And that might be okay with you. I'm okay with it. But when I say that, I'm also not using it. So if I was really okay with it, wouldn't I be having it on the desk here and using it? So there's what people say and what people do. However, I guess what I'm trying to get at is if I absolutely despised it, it wouldn't be here anymore. Okay? I would have kicked it to the curb. I would have gutted the case, taken all the parts out of it, and just went to a whole different design of case and just wrote the case off as a loss or sold it to somebody. And I'm not that upset by it. It's just inconvenient. And there may be, at some point, either a customer that wants to buy it or that I might have a use case for it where that's not going to get in the way, that once it's plugged in, I won't need to keep trying to plug things into it. You always have the USB ports on the front of the case. So me talking about going to the back, I like having the option, you know, and it gets sort of discouraging to try and get underneath or through the top versus just using the ones up front. Or if I want to hook up, say, the nano KVM or, you know, KVM in general, I still have to get to the HDMI port. So back and forth, you see, it's not bad enough that I despise it, but it's not good enough that I use it. John says maybe it was designed to be laid on its side for access. Well, the side's all glass, so I don't think so. It's definitely not meant to lay on the glass. Ben Laird wants to know, is that the Wraith cooler? It is, yes. So again, over at Amazon, you can buy these. eBay, there's a lot of sellers selling them a few bucks cheaper, but the shipping was going to take too long. But you can pick up the, what is it, the Stealth Wraith or something like that. Cooler from Amazon. There's a seller there that's got them by the hundreds. And this one was clearly used. You can tell because the thermal compound had been removed from it. But I don't care. What's to go wrong with a used cooler? Who cares? The power supply was brand new. It was not used. So my expectations of that are quite different. Did our Cinebench finish? Yeah, there we go. There are points there, 21, what does that say? 2140. 2143 on our single core, 16341 on our multi-core, and our maximum temp reached for the whole package is what? It's less than 80. Wow, I wasn't expecting it to be that good overall. So, you know, good to know. It's an option for 9600, probably 9700X too. If you're thinking about building a budget system, they're both very good CPUs for the price point, under $200, I think. 185 bucks for a 9600X is a bargain. And I've got some cleanup back here to do today after today's show. What a mess I've made. I was even trying to throw some of it away and get some of it cleaned up as we were live here, and I still have quite a bit of a mess. So when it's all said and done, it's a unique case. It's already 3 or 4 years old. It's surprising to me it's still being sold. You might like it. It's different. Definitely if you want something different and you want Mini-ITX, I would plan on putting a liquid cooler in it, because I think any air cooler in this simply isn't going to be tall enough to have a CPU at least worth a darn in it. And I also think with the glass, you really want to see the inside. And a lot of the coolers are just, they're not much to look at. This one I think is, but that's an exception. And so we've got an Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 240, brand new in a box. I've never used it. Much like having a spare power supply or having a spare cooler, I never quite know when I'm going to need a spare part. And so it's been sitting on a shelf for that reason, saying, hey, maybe someday I'll need a 240 all-in-one, and I'll use this liquid freezer. It was on sale. I'll take advantage of the price, put it up on a shelf. I think I've had it 6 months. So hopefully it still works. I'm sure it'll be fine. And we'll do that Friday. And I will also have my replacement power supplies to be prepared on Friday for part 3 of this build. So we're not about doing it fast. It's not a race. And you think about your favorite TV show probably airs once a week, you know, kind of going old school. Mara likes this show called Murderbot that's on Apple TV. And every episode is about 22 minutes long, and you only get 1 episode a week. And she likes it a lot. So just as it gets good, just as, you know, 20 minutes, you're really into it, boom, there's your credit. See you in 7 days. What? At least give me an hour. Come on. 20 minutes. Every 7 days for 20 minutes. It's a fun show. Don't take it too seriously. It's a fun show called Murderbot, based on a series of books called Murderbot. Stealth Mode said, I like that cooler. I might use it when I upgrade my CPU. I mean, they're cheap enough. And again, if you buy from Amazon with the 30-day return, you can always send it back if you don't like it or it doesn't work for some reason. So, is it Friday or is it Thursday? Today's Friday. Last I checked, did I say it was Thursday? I don't even know. Sometimes I misspeak. Today is Friday, and we'll follow this up next Friday, just as we started it last Friday. There's Mara going, yeah, she's really annoyed. She only gets 20 minutes of a show she loves once a week. So all I'm saying is, could be worse. And I guess by then we'll be into July, won't we? If today's the 27th, so by Friday, that'll be July. What will that be? It won't be 4th of July, is it? What day is that? Let's see. Pull up my calendar. Oh, it is 4th of July is Friday. Oh. Well, we're still doing a show on 4th of July. If you're not familiar, in the United States, we celebrate our independence on the 4th of July, Independence Day. And it's usually done with fireworks. So really celebrations don't begin until it starts getting dark, which in the summertime is about 8 o'clock at night, and the fireworks will usually start around 9 o'clock at night. It varies from year to year, but about 9 o'clock at night. And then people are usually barbecuing because they usually have the day off, national holiday. So you barbecue and you watch fireworks, but all that's evening. Nothing really happens on 4th of July day. It's all an evening thing. So for me to broadcast is really no different because it's not like anything's going on during the day anyway. Some shops and post office and bank and all that will be closed, but that doesn't affect me anyway. So just so you know, we will have a show on 4th of July. We also got to reach out to our friend Scott, Ask Your Computer Guy, see what his schedule's like to join us for July. And of course, our good friend Doug Betts, we'll check in with him. He's been really busy lately, but we'll see if we can squeeze some time in to join us here in July to catch up and do questions and answers and all the standard thing that we like doing here. And with regards to this system, I think I'm just done with it for today. So let me go ahead and shut it down. Let's go here. We'll close that, close that, close that. And we had no power off anomalies, so that means power supply is definitely bad. And I will write that in my description when I send it back to Amazon, so hopefully they won't sell it to somebody else. And I'll just say intermittently and randomly shuts off, replaced with different power supply, and problem went away. Definitely a bad power supply. I'm doing my best to let Amazon know. This will be a tough thing to test because they could test it, say it works, and then turn around and resell it, and then the next person. Trying to save everybody the hassle. All I can do is tell them. And because you don't need any reason to return something, I don't know how Amazon even reads these things. I'm just looking to get that RMA approval. Or in the case of Amazon, it's a QR code, and I take it over to the UPS store. They scan it. The way it goes. So what happens to that is somebody else's. What happens after that is somebody else's problem. But I guess I'll be getting on Amazon after the show and looking up a couple of power supplies. Or at least returning one with an exchange and ordering a new one so that we have them by Friday. And hopefully by Thursday, really, because I don't want this situation to happen. That was a close call. And I'm glad it arrived because otherwise we wouldn't know. So thank you to everybody hanging out with us. Thank you for your super chat contributions. And that includes, of course, David Graham and Ben Laird and Shopping Persian Rugs, Sam LK. I'm sorry, I'm using the names that are in here. Peter VZ and Elijah 52 Dickens. Thank you very much. Also for your membership renewal. Thank you to Ian Gooch, Charlie Purdy, Jose Lopez, and the membership renewals again from Sam LK, David Graham, Elijah 52 Dickens. Thank you for renewing your membership and supporting us here. And for the gift cards, a shout out and thank you once again to our friend Buster for the PayPal and the Amazon gift card. And I think I've got everybody. I don't intentionally leave anybody out. So when I do that and I find out later, I feel terrible. But if you do, if I've left somebody out and you want to bring it to my attention, send us an email and I'll correct it in the next show. Because I do intend, it is my intention to individually name people that are supporting us here above and beyond. And I want you to know how much I appreciate it and what a difference it's making for us to have a variety of content brought to you. It's been daily now for some time. Thanks, of course, to Mara for all of the work that she's done and continues to do, setting up our thumbnails and our video descriptions. I want to remind you of our friends at SCD Keys offering you the 30% off Windows and Office license codes. And I feel like what I need to do is make a video demonstrating like a Windows install and activation and maybe an Office install and activation. The thing is you really need to just, all of the questions that people have are usually because they haven't bought it yet. Once you buy it, you'll get the download and activation instructions. So where to go to get it. You're going to get it from Microsoft, by the way. It's not anything shady. And that should walk you through it. So I kind of feel like the video is only needed for people who've never tried it before. If anybody has any concern about it, my recommendation is just try it. If you run into any issues, they have 6 months of free support. You reach out to them, they will correct it. If you're worried, what if they don't? Then you reach out to me. I guarantee you I'll correct it. So that's why I've hesitated on making the how-to videos. It seems kind of, for anybody that actually gives it an attempt, you're likely going to just say, oh, that was no big deal. But to walk you through the process ahead of it, like setting your expectation, the problem with that is it requires a lot of editing and covering up of personal information regarding product keys and logins. It's a big job to do. And if it ultimately doesn't really help, because either you're still not going to buy it, or you do buy it and you're going to follow the exact same instruction, it's clear as a bell. I'm not quite sure who I'm making it for, but you know, if you guys want me to, I will, for either Office or Windows or both. I won't be able to do that live. And Bill Sony T mentions RoboForm is also great with support. Agreed. Yeah. I've been using RoboForm now. It's got to be 20 years. Mark says, speaking of the Paladin W04 6600H mini PC, I posted a full review on Amazon and a mini review in the forums. Yeah, thank you. I did see the mini review in the forums. And also, I'm sure that Paladin appreciates the Amazon review as well. And that'll help other Amazon shoppers that are making up their mind, because we know Mark knows what he's talking about, and what he's writing his review, we know it's coming from somebody who shares a lot of the same concerns most others do about, you know, how loud is it, and, you know, is it easy to work on? You know, is there anything I should be worried about? That kind of thing. Not all Amazon reviews are very helpful. So, yeah, I think it's great when people do that. So that'll wrap it up for me for today. If you want to reach out to us, our email address is right here on the screen. It's amazing to me how many people say they don't know how to reach out to me when I put it on the screen. and in the video notes on every single video I do. So what they're telling me is I don't watch your videos, I can't be bothered. So I'm just going to reach out to you in the laziest way possible, no matter how inconvenient it is, no matter how impolite or rude it is, because I cannot find your email address. Doesn't seem like you looked. Anyway, we would prefer if you'd reach out to that email address right there. You don't have to, but if you want the fastest response, that's the best way to reach us. And we'll get to you as soon as we can. Usually it's within 24 hours, unless, of course, you've mistyped the email address and we won't get the email at all. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. Enjoy the rest of your Friday. Hope you have a great weekend. We'll be back here. Could be tomorrow, could be Sunday. I'm not sure yet. I have a lot of work to do outside of the videos, but I also have a lot of videos to do as well. So hopefully we'll be back on the weekend, but I'm just not committing to that yet. Every Monday, we're always live for our members only videos that only the members can watch. And those videos remain private. And so when you join membership, if you decide to support us, you can watch the members only videos that have quite a few have accumulated to catch up on what you may have missed. There's a couple diagnostics, a couple repairs that I've done that I have no intention of making public to continue to reward our members, without whom we would not have today's video. So thank you all for watching, especially to our members, and we look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon. Until next time, bye for now.